Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Santoshaitya Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Mataji, am I audible, clear? My video is okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yashomati Nandana Brajabaro Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Parana Dhana Madana Manohara Kaliya Dhamana Vidhana Kaliya Dhamana Vidhana Yashomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Harinam Mamiya Vilasa Amara Harina Agara Vipina Purandara Vadana Suvasa Palana Ashura Andha Godana Rakova Madhava Namanita Madhava Namanita Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara Sri Vallabha Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय।
We'll start with invocation prayers and then we'll go into the session. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Sthapitam Tale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunadanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dheena Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Napta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namah Pankajanaභaya Namah Pankajamaline Namah Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangre Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Brahmanyaya Devaya Gau Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagadithaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim ekrutamaham vande Shri Gurudina Taranam Shri Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Om Pavitro va sarvavastam gato piva Yasmaret Pundari Kaksham Sapya Yabyantaram Suchi Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Matajis. Dandavat pranams to all of you. Padma Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam. Vanilla Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam Mataji. Thanks for joining.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat.
Katyani Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam. Thanks for joining.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Venkat Prabhu, Ratnashri Mataji, Vrishank, Shreyans, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. Praveen Prabhu Haribol. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Thanks for joining.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Puja Mataji, thank you for joining. Deepa Mataji Haribol, thank you for joining. Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Shilpa Mataji, you are the host. Thank you very much for all your service, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for taking up the services. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Santoshaditya Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thanks for joining. Rajiv Prabhu, Prita Mataji, Hare Krishna. Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Swapna Mataji, Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Thanks for joining, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat.
Dandavat Pranam. So, Prabhuji and Matajis, today I was given service to discuss about Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6.4, and about 35th shloka to 54 shlokas of chapter 4. And this chapter is primarily about the prayers of Daksha Prajapati or Daksha Maharaj to Lord Vishnu, right? So last week, we have other preachers who were discussing about this chapter in detail, right? Starting from shloka 1 to shloka 34. But before that, maybe some of you would have not joined the session last Sunday, or though some of you have been part of that session, maybe it would be difficult to connect between the first set of shlokas and the second set of shlokas. So what I thought is, we will quickly go through the entire summary of the chapter, the gist of this chapter, and then we'll cover the first 34 shlokas in a summary, in a nutshell, not maybe in detail, so that there is a continuity of the chapter, and then we will discuss the second part of the chapter, which we have about 19 shlokas, pretty small and straightforward chapter, but very important. Again, there are a lot of things His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada discusses in the purpose when we actually go through, right, about the Supreme Lord and his opulences and all those things, which we will discuss in detail. So just give me a minute. Let me try to open my screen. Is everybody able to see my screen? Can any one of you tell me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, very well. Thank you. So you see this background picture. This is the picture which depicts this entire chapter, right? Daksha Prajapati or Daksha Maharaj prayers to Lord Vishnu and how he appears, right? This is exactly how Lord Vishnu appears in front of Daksha Maharaj. So we will go in detail, right? This is the connectivity, or to understand the background, how Daksha Maharaj was born and who are his parents, and all those things are little technical, right? So I have just tried to give some summary on this. Let's see how it goes. Right. So upon Maharaj Parikshit's appeal, Sukdev Goswami actually started discussing or explaining him the further details about the creation and the living entities within the universe. So in the starting of this chapter, Parikshit Maharaj requests the Sukdev Goswami to explain in detail, in further, about the creation of living entities within this universe. So that's how Sukdev Goswami starts this chapter, right? So this is how it goes. So there is this person called Prachina Barhi, right? And Prachina Barhi has 10 sons who are Prechatas actually, right? Prachitas, their names are Prachitas. So what happens is, this Prachitas, they are like rulers of the entire planet. So in order to perform the austerity, all of them enters into the ocean, and they start performing austerity there for several thousand years, right? So obviously what happens when there is no king to take care of the planet, obviously, the planet will become dirty, right? So, if any of you have your own gardens or, farms or backyards or anything like that, not only that, you can also see in a lot of places. If we leave some kind of place like that, which uncleaned or unmaintained for some time, obviously it'll accumulate a lot of dust, right? A lot of weed grows around, a lot of trees go around, no maintenance, nothing, right? Most of us live in communities. If our gardens are not maintained for 1 week or 10 days, then we can see what is the situation of those gardens, right? In the same way, when Prachitas have left the planet and went into the sea to perform austerity for several thousands of years, right? The entire planet has, a lot of weeds have grown, a lot of trees have grown, it has become very dirty, right? So, looking at that situation, when they have come out of the austerity and when they have seen that, all over it is like that, they were little, they've taken back, right? How can this be like this? And they were angry on the trees which were grown on the surface of planet Earth, and they want to curse them, right? They were very, very angry. How can this happen? How can our Earth be like this? Right? It cannot be our planet, our home. It'll have to be clean, neat, and all those things. So they were very, very angry, and they want to curse the trees so that all the trees die and the planet becomes again very beautiful, right? So the exact time when they were about to curse the trees which are on the planet Earth, the king of the moon, Soma, appears, right? Is basically moon. His name, the god's name is Soma, who's the king of the moon. He appears. So Somadev apparently is also a prescribed deity or a king of all the vegetation and the trees and all those things. So through his energy, all these things are maintained basically. So he appears in front of them and he requests the Prachitas not to do that, right? And he explains that, all these trees are also living entities, right? And they are also apparently the part of the Supreme Lord. They're all kids of Supreme Lord, right? And Supreme Lord confirms that in Srimad Bhagavad Gita also in a couple of occasions, right? He says, Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu, right? So he's like, I'm all these living entities are part of me. I'm not favor or I'm not greedy of or envious of anyone, right? So a lot of places, Lord Krishna confirms that, I am, aham bija pradapitaha, I am the seed-giving father to all the living entities. There are a lot of occasions where he confirms that, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram sahrudam sarva bhutanam gnatva mam shanti uchati. I am with kind heart for all the living entities, right? Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatana. All the living entities are part of my fragmental parts. So Krishna says that. In a lot of occasions in Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna confirms that all the living entities are part of me, right? So therefore, Lord Somadev reminds this to Prachitas and requests them, not to curse the trees, right? Because he is responsible for the vegetation on this planet as well. And in order to pacify them, Somadev offers them the daughter of Pramlocha Apsara, right? He offers them to Prachitas, the daughter of Apsara, and that Apsara's name is Pramlocha Apsara, so that they can help in increasing the population on this planet, right? And after the Apsara's daughter is presented to Prachitas, through them, the Prachitas and Apsara's daughter, through them, this Apsara's daughter gets pregnant and she delivers a baby boy called Daksha. So he is the same Daksha earlier where we have learned in Bhagavatam who insulted Lord Shiva in Daksha Yajna, right? That's the same Daksha is what Bhagavatam explains. And he left his body and he is born again in a different life to Prachitas and Apsara, right? And Daksha, after taking birth, right, obviously after, he's growing, right, he starts creating the living entities, right? The lot of demigods, lot of living entities, all these things he creates. But over a period of time, Daksha is not happy with his creation. He felt that his creation is not working properly. People are becoming very envious and, they are not following Dharma. So he sees that, okay, there is something wrong in the creation, right? Not perfect. So he renounces everything. He takes sannyasa and he goes to the Vindhya mountains and he starts performing tapasya there for several years. He starts, because he leaves everything as he's not happy with his own creation. He wants to understand why. So he goes to Vindhya mountains and he starts performing the full austerity, tapasya in full-fledged, right? Supreme Lord, pleasing with his tapasya, appears in front of him, right? Appears in front of him. And next, what happens after Supreme Lord appears is what we will see, right? So till the last, when we had the Bhagavatam session last week, we have discussed about the Supreme Lord's appearance, that Lord appeared in front of him. Till there we have stopped. So this week we are going to discuss on how the Lord's opulences are, or how Lord's, how Lord looks at, and what is the conversation between Supreme Lord and Daksha Prajapati or Daksha Maharaj, and what are the boons that Supreme Lord has given him. All those things we will see in detail in this chapter. So this after the Supreme Lord appears, Daksha Maharaj does stuti, right? He praises him, right? And that prayer is called Hamsa Guhya prayers. And that's how this chapter is named, that the prayers of Daksha Maharaj to Lord Vishnu, and that prayer is called Hamsa Guhya prayers. So the chapter itself is named as Hamsa Guhya prayers. So that's the flow, that's the hierarchy, right? So Prachina Bari sons are Prechatas. Prechatas want to curse the trees on the planet because they all formed weeds and become dirty. And Somadev appears. He says, no, please don't do that. They are also part of the Lord Krishna, right? And then he presents the Apsara's daughter. Through her, Prechatas deliver, or through her, Apsara, they will have a son as Daksha. And Daksha try to create these living entities, and he's not happy with his own creation. He takes sannyasa. He goes to Vindhya mountains, where he was performing the austerity for several years. And then Lord Vishnu, pleased with his austerity, he appears in front of him with eight hands form, right? So the entire chapter is called Hamsa Guhya. So I will take a pause here, Prabhuji and Matajis. So is the flow clear to all of you, or are there any confusions?
Yes, Prabhuji, clear.
Yeah, Haribol. Thank you. So I will close this side. There is not much of slide on this. So I will share this Veda-based Bhagavatam, then we can discuss. Just give me a minute. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So this is what we are going to discuss now. So this is the summary, the entire summary of the chapter, which I have just explained to you in the PPT format. And then 1 to 34 shlokas already covered. So we'll start with 35. So we'll just read the first shloka and then go into the translation and purport. I'll start with the first shloka, which is 35. Shri Shuka Uvacha iti stutaha samstuvataha sa tasmin agamarashane pradurashit kuru shreshta bhagavan bhakta vatsalaha. So translation, Sri Sukdev Goswami said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is extremely affectionate to his devotees, was very pleased by the prayers offered by Daksha, and thus he appeared at a holy place known as Agamarshana. O Maharaja Parikshit, best of the Kuru dynasty, The Lord's feet rested on the shoulder of his carrier, Garuda, which exactly how we have seen in the picture I have showed you. And he appeared with 8 long, mighty, very beautiful arms. In his hand, he held a disc, conch shell, sword, shield, arrow, bow, rope, and club. In each hand, a different weapon, all brilliantly shining. His garments were yellow, and his bodily hue deep bluish. His eyes and face were very cheerful, and the form and from his neck to his feet hung a long garland of flowers. His chest was decorated with Kaustuba jewel and the mark of Srivatsa. On his head was a gorgeous round helmet, and his ears were decorated with earrings and resembling sharks. All these ornaments were uncommonly beautiful. The Lord wore a golden belt on his waist, bracelets on his arms, rings on his fingers, and ankle bells on his feet, thus decorated by various ornaments. Lord Hari, who is attractive to all living entities of the 3 worlds, is known as Purushottama, the best personality. He was accompanied by great devotees like Narada, Nanda, and all the principal demigods led by heavenly king Indra, and the residents of various upper planetary systems such as Siddhaloka, Gandharva-loka, and Charana-loka, situated on both sides of Lord and behind him as well. So these devotees offered him prayers continuously. Haribol. So Prabhuji and Mataji's, the full description of Supreme Lord is given here. We will see such descriptions in the several occasions, the several places in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is one of them. In detail, it is given to our understanding that how Supreme Lord appears and how he actually looks like, right? With a small detail, to the detail that about the Srivatsam, Kaustubam, what kind of jewelry he's wearing, what kind of helmets he's wearing, what kind of the color of his dhoti, and about earrings. A lot of description is given here, right? And it is also said that if we observe it carefully, right, it is also said that Lord did not come alone, right? There is a lot of his devotees and full clan came along with him. As it is said in the several scriptures, including Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is explained that Lord does not come alone. He comes with all his principal followers and his devotees and everyone. Right? In the same way, here also it is explained that he did not come alone. He came with great devotees like Narada, Nanda, and principal gods. Indra was there, right? And so many residents of upper planetary systems like Siddhaloka, Gandharva-loka, Charana-loka, situated at both sides. So he's come with a full-fledged group, right, to appear in front of Daksha Prajapati. So that's the opulence of Supreme Lord, right? Because when he's there, everybody is there around him, right? So he's always, everybody is always waiting to have darshan of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. 6.40. Somebody want to read this?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Shall I read?
Yes, please, Prabhuji, go ahead.
Translation. Seeing that wonderful and effulgent form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prajapati Daksha was first somewhat afraid, but then he was very pleased to see the Lord, and he fell to the ground like a stick to offer his respect to the Lord. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Haribol, Haribol. So that's how typically we see, any of the, devotees, first when they have the darshan of the Supreme Lord, they will not have words, that they're in ecstasy, that they don't know how to react. We see that in the case of Prahlad Maharaj as well. That Bhagavatam also explains that, he had no words. He asked him, what do I want? That I saw you, that's enough for me. Right? And same way with Dhruva Maharaj. Right? The same thing he also said, what do I want, Lord? I don't need anything. I saw you, I'm good. Right? So that's the feeling of Daksha Prajapati here also. So, he had no words. He was taken back. He was afraid. Right? It's also explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had the darshan of Jagannath on the Rath, he had the similar kind of reaction. He fainted. He was getting up and again doing some kirtan, again fainting, getting up, fainting, getting up, fainting. That's they are in the ecstasy when they see the Supreme Lord. Right? So that's how the pure devotees mindset is and how they react when they see God. Right? We'll go into next shloka. 41. Anyone want to read this?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. As rivers are filled by water flowing from a mountain, all of Daksha's senses were filled with pleasure because of his highly elevated happiness. Daksha couldn't say anything but simply remained flat on the ground. Can you read the purport also, Prabhuji?
Yes, please go ahead, Mother.
Purport. When one actually realizes or sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is filled with complete happiness. For example, when Dhruva Maharaj saw the Lord in his presence, he said, Swamin Kritartho Asmi Varam Nayache. My dear Lord, I have nothing to ask from you. Now I am completely satisfied. Similarly, when Prajapati Daksha saw the Supreme Lord in his presence, he simply fell flat, unable to speak or ask him for anything. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So there is a similar reference in Bhagavad Gita also, how actually the senses work, right? In second chapter, Krishna says, Yavana Ardha Udapane Sarvataha Samplutodake. Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha. So there's a purpose of, the complete reservoir, the small lakes, coming into the large reservoir. That's bhakti, right? So that's the same thing, reference which is given in Bhagavatam also, where the complete, because of the ecstasy or the bhakti and the love towards the Supreme Lord, what Daksha Maharaj had, right? All his senses, they came together, right? Like flowing through rivers from a different mountains and staggering at one place. And as we just discussed some time back, Dhruva Maharaj reference is also given here. So that's what, Maharaj said, Dhruva Maharaj, what do I need? I don't need anything. I just saw you. Right? So that's the love of and affection of a pure devotee to the Supreme Lord. .42 shloka. Yeah, can somebody read the translation?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Although Prajapati Daksha could not say anything, when the Lord, who knows everyone's heart, saw his devotee prostrate in the manner and desiring to increase the population, he addressed him as follows. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So again, a lot of references that we can take from different scripture, especially from Bhagavad Gita, that Lord is seated in everybody's heart. There are a lot of instances in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions this. Sarva Bhutani Samoham, Kridde Arjuno Tishtati. That is, I am sitting in everybody's heart. A lot of references he gives where, I am seated in everyone's heart as the Supreme Lord. A lot of references there in Bhagavad Gita. So here also it is confirmed in Bhagavatam there, the Lord is sitting in everybody's heart. He understands. He understands what is the actual desire of a living entity. Right? And let's see what is the desire of that living entity and how Lord reciprocates to Prajapati Daksha. Yeah. So, yeah, 43rd sloka. Somebody want to read the translation? From here, the purpose actually starts in detail. We'll go through that. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O most fortunate
Prachetasa.
Chetasa, because of your great faith in me, you have attained the supreme devotional ecstasy. Indeed, because of your austerities combined with exalted devotion, your life is now successful. You have achieved complete perfection.
Haribol. You can read the purport also, Prabhuji.
As the Lord himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita 8.15, one reaches the highest perfection when he attains the fortune of realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Mam
Mam upetya punarjanma dukshalayam ashashvatam na nubhanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining me, the great soul who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement teaches one to follow the path toward the topmost perfection simply by performing devotional service.
Very good. Thank you, Prabhuji. So, references, Prabhuji and Mataji, you'll have to see, here, Supreme Lord says that you have attained the supreme devotional ecstasy. Indeed, because of your austerities combined with exalted devotion, your life is now successful. Right? So now Supreme Lord is giving a reference on how a life can be successful. Right? It is clear that, having, big wells or properties or, cars or jobs or highly paid salaries does not give us success. So it is very, very clear that, only a devotional service can lead to the actual success of life, because the purpose of life is to liberate. It's not to be in this material world. And that liberation can happen only through love and devotion to the Supreme Lord. It cannot happen in any way. There is no formula to it, or there is no perfect calculations to it. So, a lot of references in Bhagavad Gita also where Krishna gives, says only with devotion and love that, you can attain me. There is no other way. Several references. Man manabhava mad bhakto mad yajimam namaskuru. Mam eva svaiti yuktayana atmanam mat parayana. There is the only way. Right? My devotees are always like this, exchanging, with their full devotion towards me. Right? A lot of references like that. So we need to understand that the only way to attain the Supreme Lord and his love and his mercy is only through devotion. There is no other way. Hare Krishna. Yes. Somebody want to read the next translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Shall I read?
Yes, please.
Translation. My dear Prajapati Daksha, you have performed extreme austerities for the welfare and growth of the world. My desire also is that everyone within this world be happy. I am therefore very pleased with you because you are endeavoring to fulfill my desire for the welfare of the entire world.
Very good. Yes.
After shall I read? Shall I read the purport? After every dissolution of the material cosmos, all the living entities take shelter in the body of Karnodakshayi Vishnu, and when creation takes place again, they come forth from his body in their various species to resume their activities. Why does the creation take place in such a way that the living entities are put into conditioned lives to suffer the threefold miseries imposed upon them by the material nature? Here the Lord says to Daksha, you desire to benefit all living entities, and that is also my desire. The living entities who come in contact with the material world are meant to be corrected. All the living entities within this material world have revolted against the service of the Lord, and therefore they remain within this material world as ever conditioned. Nityabadha, taking birth again and again. There is a chance, of course. There is a chance, of course, of their being liberated. But nevertheless, the conditioned souls, now taking advantage of this opportunity, continue in a life of sense enjoyment, and thus they are punished by birth and death again and again. This is the law of nature. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Taivihi yesha gunamayi mamamaya duratteya mameva prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 15.7, the Lord says, Mamai vamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manasasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned lives, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. The living entity's struggle for existence within the material world is due to his rebellious nature. Unless a living entity surrenders to Krishna, he must continue this life of struggle. The Krishna consciousness movement is not a fad. It is a bona fide movement. intended to promote the welfare of all conditioned souls by trying to elevate everyone to the platform of Krishna consciousness. If one does not come to this platform, he must continue in material existence perpetually, sometimes in the upper planet and sometimes in the lower planets, as confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita 20.118. Kabhu Swarge Uthaya, Kabhu Narake Dubaya. The conditioned soul sometimes descends into nations and sometimes gets some relief by being relatively freed from it. This is the life of the conditioned soul. Prajapati Daksha is trying to benefit the conditioned souls by begetting them to give them a life with a chance for liberation. Liberation means surrender to Krishna. If one begets children with the purpose of training them to surrender to Krishna, fatherhood is very good. Similarly, when the spiritual master trains the conditioned souls to become Krishna conscious, his position is successful. If one gives the conditioned souls a chance to become Krishna conscious, all his activities are approved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is extremely pleased, as stated here, Ritoham. Following the examples of the previous acharyas, all the members of the Krishna conscious movement should try to benefit the conditioned souls by inducing them to become Krishna conscious and giving them all facilities to do so. Such activities constitute real welfare work. By such activities, a preacher of church is recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Lord himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita 18.6, Seva Abhidasyati Bhakti Mayi Param Krutva Mam Yevasyatve Asamsayaha Nacha Tasman Manusheshu Kaschin me Priyakritamaha Anyaha Priyataro Bhuvi. Priyataro Bhuvi. For one who explains the supreme secrets to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear.
Haribol. Thank you, Mataji. So very, very important shloka and very long and very important purport of this chapter, Prabhuji and Mataji's. So let's spend some time on this particular shloka and purport. So Supreme Lord is saying, you have performed extreme austerities for the welfare and the growth of the world. My desire is also that everyone within this world should be happy. Right? But in the same Lord in Bhagavad Gita is telling you can never be happy in this world. Right? Punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Right? God knows that, this is not the right place. It is full of dukkhalayam and ashashvatam. Right? All miseries and all temporary only. But there is a still hope in this kind of world to also be happy or to live happy. And the only way is being God conscious or Krishna conscious. So that's exactly what, God is referring to. The Supreme Lord is referring to. Right? And he's saying that, he's telling to Daksha Prajapati that you are doing this for a welfare of the society. That means what? The desire of Daksha Prajapati, as you will see in the coming shlokas, is actually to create more population or produce more population. Right? Why to produce more population? It will be explained in the following shlokas. But just to give you a gist, the intention or the desire of Prajapati Daksha to produce more population is basically to liberate them, not for his own material desires. He does not want that, because people are running between the cycle of birth and death. They are not able to liberate because of not having the right knowledge. Right? Therefore, Daksha Prajapati want to produce more and more kids, put them in a right path in the Krishna consciousness, and ultimately liberate them from this world. That means he's trying to benefit the population, not just creating for the sake of creating like a lot of material people do. Right? So that's what we primarily need to understand from this, right? And here, Prabhupada in this purport talks about, every living entity take shelter in the body of Karanodakasai Vishnu. Prabhujis and Matajis, earlier chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained that there is something called temporary dissolution and a permanent dissolution, right? The temporary dissolution means the individual living entity leaves the body, right? And whatever the karma or whatever the punishments they'll have to go through in whatever lokas or punya lokas or papa lokas or whatever it is, they finish that and they come back to the material world through another body. They are not permanently dissoluted. That means it's not over permanently. It's just a temporary dissolution where they don't enter Karanodaka Sai Vishnu or the Supreme Lord's body in the stomach. They just go through this process and come back to the material world. Whereas there is something called permanent dissolution. Permanent dissolution means when the entire cosmic manifestation comes to an end, right? After, Mahayugas, right? Every living entity in this world goes back to Karanodaka Sai Vishnu and rests in his stomach, right? So that is called permanent dissolution. They are put into a sleep mode in the way that, we actually, our consciousness is like that when we are sleeping. So we don't know anything that is happening, right? And they are got back to life, to the activity, when there is a different cosmic manifestation created, right? So that's the difference between a temporary temporary dissolution and a permanent dissolution, right? So let's go into further into this purport. So Lord says this is the illusionary energy that everybody is put into, right? Where somebody is taking birth again and again, which are called Nitya Baddhas. So in other purports, in other chapters, Prabhupada also mentions this Nitya Baddhas and Nitya Yuktas, right? Nitya Baddhas are people who are always striving for material benefits, material activities, and they are sure to take birth again. They can't liberate. Nitya Yuktas are people who understand the purpose of life, surrender to the Supreme Lord, and ultimately liberate, right? Or at least going in the path of liberation, trying to liberate, right? So that's what. And without Lord permission or Lord's mercy, it is not possible. That's what, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Daivi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. Ma meva ye prapadyante maya metham tarante. It is not possible. It is not possible. And why the Lord is trying to help us? Why Lord is trying to help us? Because he knows that this world is not a right place for us to live. It is full of dukkhalayam and ashashvatam. And it is through our own desire we have come to this world. It is not Lord's desire that, you want to go there. He never wants us to go there. Right? Even now, if we go through the Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, Prabhuji and Matajis, what a wonderful chapter. In 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains in detail about the reclaiming process. Right? How he wants us to come back and how he is helping us to come back. And during our stay in the material world, how he is actually helping in several ways, including helping us to digest our own food. Right? He explains in detail in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Gnaninam Deham Ashritaha Pranapana Samyuktaha Pachami Annam Chaturvidam. He's saying, Baba, I am helping you to digest your own food as well. Right? It's very similarly like when we send any of our kids, right, out somewhere without our guidance or probably without our monitoring with the school trips or anything like that. How we take care of them, how we protect them, and how we create a protective environment, right? Whether we keep them in hostels or send them on some trips or anything like that. How we create a protective environment? In the same way, though Krishna knows that this is not the right world for us to live in, and he does not have a choice because it is because purely of our own desire we have come to this world. He's still trying to create a protective environment for us so that we are in that right environment. He's helping us. We are taking his help and ultimately liberate, go back. Right? So that's what this purport very clearly explains. And he's helping us because we are all part of him. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manaha shastran indriyani prakrutistani karshati. You are all fragmental parts of mind. But due to the contaminated or conditioned life, you are suffering with the six senses. Right? So this is what we need to understand. And And Prabhupada explains that, this Krishna conscious movement is not, any other simple movement, or it is not just a fad. It is a bona fide movement where there is 100% practicality. And that practicality and whatever Krishna consciousness teaches us is purely based on the scriptures and teachings of Lord Krishna himself. There is no hypothetical theory here that you do this, you can do that. On what basis? Nobody knows. Right? But Krishna consciousness movement is not like that. It is purely based on teachings of Lord Krishna and the other scriptures. Anything that we talk about, if we say that, yes, you can liberate. Yes, you can liberate. How? Based on this process. And where it is mentioned in this particular scripture. This is the reference. Right? It is a bona fide structured process that one can elevate their consciousness from Tamoguna to Sattva-guna, finally Suddha Sattva, and ultimately liberate. So that's a very, very, you can say very structured and bona fide process to liberate ourselves, right? And Prabhupada also explains here, why should somebody actually give birth to children? What is the reason, right? As Srimad Bhagavatam also explains, a parent cannot be a parent if he cannot show a liberating path to his kids or her kids, whatever, mother or father, does not matter. Right? Here again, Prabhupada gives reference to that. Right? He explains that. Basically, the reason Daksha Prajapati want to give birth to more children is to liberate them. And Prabhupada also explains how a child need to be trained in the Krishna consciousness from the childhood itself. Right? Prabhuji and Mataji, when I see the difference personally, the way the devotee kids are brought up versus the normal kids, right? The material parental kids, you see a lot of difference in them, right? Unfortunately, in today's society, nobody understands what is the reason that the kids are born, right? And then in scriptures they explain that kids are born for a specific reason, including this particular shloka. They are born for a specific reason, and why they are only born to you. And as a responsibility of parents, we will have to put them in the right path to ultimately show them the path of liberation. And if we can't do that, Bhagavatam explains that we are not right parents. Simple. So that's the reason Prajapati Daksha want to create or produce more kids to ultimately liberate them. That's the right reason, because it is not just a matter of children or kid. We are taking a responsibility of a soul who's again a child of Krishna, right? We are only caretakers. We are temporary caretakers. That child also belongs to Krishna only. We are only temporary caretakers where Krishna has given us the responsibility. I am giving you these souls. Train them properly and ultimately help them to liberate. So he's giving us the great responsibility. The question is, are we acting with such responsibility? Is the question. We are only worried about putting the kids in a big school, spending lakhs of rupees, material education, right? Send them to that activity, send them to this activity, lot of things. Some of the parents, I'm not trying to point out every parent, but we see, unfortunately, we are trying to see that, we are seeing that in the society. Sometimes, kids are just treated as a money machines. May not be intentionally. But most of the parents want their kids to go to America or Australia or UK, just to make money. And Bhagavatam is saying, that's not the purpose of life. That's not the purpose why kids are born. It is to train them properly in Krishna consciousness so that they become good kids or good citizens, and ultimately they liberate. That's the main purpose of life. Right? And Prabhupada explains that anyone who explains this kind of activities and gives this kind of knowledge to a lot of devotees or non-devotees, whoever it is, for all the living entities, is very dear to Krishna. And Krishna himself explains that in Bhagavad Gita 18.68 and 69. Ya idam paramam gukyam madbhaktvesha vidashyate bhaktim mayi param krutva mam eva shvaiti asamshaya. Nacha tasman manusyeshu kaschin me priyakritamaha bhavita nacha me tasmat anyaha priyataro bhuyi. He says, for one who explains the supreme secret of the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed. The Prabhuji and Matajis, all the preachers, be happy with this statement of Krishna. So we are all the more dearer to Krishna. And Krishna also is saying, at the end, he will come to me. So he's giving the assurance. That's the reason we are into preaching movement. And Krishna also says, Nacha tasman manushyechu kaschin me priyakrtamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there be any more dear. So that's the reason, Prabhujan Mataji's, our movement is a preaching movement. So Bhagavad Gita explains that whoever preaches Bhagavad Gita and explains the benefits of Bhagavad Gita, right, is the more and more dearer servant of Krishna. And there cannot be anyone dear to him. Whatever services, this is the best service, is what Bhagavad Gita explains. Right? Hare Krishna. Yes. Anyone want to read this?
Hare
Can I
Krishna,
do
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji?
Yes. Please
Please
go.
go ahead.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Manus, and all other demigods in the higher planetary systems, and you Prajapatis, who are increasing the population, are working for the benefit of all living entities. Thus, you expansions of my marginal energy are incarnations of my various qualities. Purport: there are various types of incarnations or expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The expansions of his personal self or Vishnu Tattva are called Swamsha expansions, whereas the living entities who are not Vishnu Tattva but Jiva Tattva are called Vibhinnamsha,
Vinnamsha.
separate expansions. Although Prajapati Daksha is not on the same level as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, he is compared to them because he engages in the service of Lord. In the service of the personality of Godhead, it is not that Lord Brahma is considered very great, while an ordinary human being trying to preach the glories of the Lord is considered very low. There are no such distinctions. Regardless of whether materially high or materially low, anyone engaged in the service of the Lord is spiritually very dear to him. In this regard, Srila Madhavacharya gives this quotation from the Tantra Nirnaya.
You can read the translation, Prabhuji.
Okay.
From Lord Brahma down.
From Lord Brahma down, all living entities engaged in the service of the Lord are extreme or extraordinary and are called Vibhuti. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 10.41, know that all the beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. A living entity, especially empowered to act on behalf of the Lord, is called Vibhuti. Whereas the Vishnu Tattva incarnations of the Lord, such as Matsyavatara, Keshavadrita, Meena Sharira, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, are called Vibhava.
Thank you. So this verse explains the greatness of the Supreme Lord, right? As Prabhupada explains here, Vibhuti, right? This shloka from the 10th chapter, basically the context of this shloka is 10th chapter explains Bhagavad Gita that, what is the greatness of Krishna? He says, out of mountains, I am Meru, out of rivers, I am Ganges, out of bees, I am lion, all those things. He explains, I am the greatest. Out of fish, all the fishes, I am the shark, right? And then after giving all the references of his greatness, Krishna finally says, Yat yat vibhuti mat sattvam srimad urchitam evava tattat evava gachyatvam mama tejam sasambhavam. So then he says, Arjuna, why is that you want to know all these things? Whatever I told you is just a spark of my splendor. It is just a small thing, just a spark of my entire creation. There is much more to it which you cannot visualize, right? And for that itself, Arjuna is fainted, looking at the the opulences or the greatness of Supreme Lord, right? In the next chapter of Bhagavad Gita 11, where the Supreme Lord actually shows his Vishwarupa, Virat Rupa, he gets scared, right? He gets bewildered, and he will request him to withdraw it and come back to normal. So this is what explains what is these great opulences of the Supreme Lord. 46. Anyone of you want to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes, Mataji, please.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: My dear Brahmana, my dear Brahmana, austerity in the form of meditation is my heart. Vedic knowledge in the form of hymns and mantras constitutes my body, and spiritual activities and ecstatic emotions are my actual form. The ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices, when properly conducted, are the various limbs of my body. The unseen good fortune proceeding from pious or spiritual activities constitutes my mind, and the demigods who execute my orders in various departments are my life and soul. Purport. Sometimes atheists argue that since God is invisible to their eyes, they do not believe in God. For them, the Supreme Lord is describing a method by which one can see God in his impersonal form. Intelligent persons can see God in his personal form, as stated in the Shastras. But if one is very eager to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead immediately, face to face, he can see the Supreme Lord through the description, which portrays the various internal and external parts of his body. To engage in tapasya or denial of material activities is the first principle of spiritual life. Then there are spiritual activities such as the performance of Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, study of the Vedic knowledge, meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. One should also respect the demigods and understand how they are situated, how they act, and how they manage the activities of the various departments of this material world. In this way, one can see how God is existing and how everything is managed perfectly because of the presence of Supreme Lord. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9.10, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and non-moving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. If one is unable to see the Supreme Lord, although he is present as Krishna in his various incarnations, one may see the Supreme Lord's impersonal feature according to the direction of the Vedas by seeing the activities of material nature. Anything done under the direction of Vedic injunctions is called dharma, as described by the order carriers of Yamaraj, Bhagavatam 6.1.40. Veda pranihito dharmo hyadharmastad viparyaya vedo narayana sakshat swayam bhuriti sushruma. That which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is irreligion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, and are self-born. This we have heard from Yamaraj. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya comments, Tapo bhimani rudrastu vishnur hridayam ashritaha vidyarupa tathaiva ma vishnustanumupashrita. शृङ्गाराद्याकृतिगतः क्रियात्मा शासना अङ्गेषु क्रतवः सर्वे मध्यदेहे च धर्मरात् प्राणो वायुश्चित्तगतो ब्रह्माद्यास्वेषु देवता. The various demigods are all acting under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and according to their various actions, the demigods are differently named. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Again, another very important purport where the Supreme Lord is very clearly giving an understanding on how can you actually, look at him, or how can you actually feel him, right? In the various forms, right? He's saying his heart is the Vedic knowledge, right? In the form of hymns, and the mantras constitute his body, right? Different things. And Prabhupada very nicely explains in this purport that, an atheist who is very eager to see the God and says, where is the God? Show him, right? Such kind of people actually can feel the God and see the God through this form. But the problem is they have arguments after this also that nobody can help, right? And, if you look at the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains very similarly that I am everywhere, right? I am everywhere, right? Praso mapatsu kaunteya prabhashmi sachishuryaho pranavaha sarva vedeshu shaptaha ke paurusham narshu. I'm there in your drinking water, your hunger, in the syllable of Om. I am the Vedas. Pitamahasya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara ruk sama yajurevacha. I am the Vedas. Sarvaisvachakam hridisannivisto mattaka smutir gnanam apoham. Everything is coming from me. Your remembrance, your forgetfulness, everything is coming from me. Vedesha sarveraham eva vedyo vedanta kriddeva vidhyeva chadha. Right? I am the knower of Vedas. Vedas are compiled by me. Everything comes from me. Right? So that's a clear understanding. So God, if we want to see, is available everywhere, Prabhuji Mataji. But for somebody who has questions, they can never see him, whichever way. Now their eyes are so materialistically contaminated that even if he comes and stand in front of him, they cannot recognize him. But if somebody knows what is the real presence of God and who is actually the God, we devotees experience God everywhere. Right? Like I was actually, listening to a lecture where the interesting conversation happened between Prabhupada. I think it's in Indradumya Maharaj, if I'm not wrong. So Indradumya Maharaj was traveling along with Prabhupada on the flight. And then he was in the, both of them are sitting together. And in those days, I think they're coming from US to India. And Indradumya Maharaj was, because Prabhupada was sitting beside him, he was very, very cautious. Right. And Prabhupada was just, looking at switching on the TV and trying to check all those things. And Indradumya Maharaj also, his TV got switched on. And there is some movie coming in. Right. And, he's like, he was like, oh, Prabhupada is sitting behind me, next to me. How can I watch this movie? And he immediately took his Bhagavad Gita and started reading. And then he suddenly heard a big laugh, ha, 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 a typical Prabhupada's laugh. Right. And he was shocked. He said, Prabhupada, you looking at movie? And he saw that, Prabhupada is watching a Charlie Chaplin's movie. Right. And then he says, Prabhupada, how can, I thought we should never watch movies. How come you are watching movie? Then Prabhupada replied that, I'm not watching movie. I'm watching the humor of Charlie Chaplin in this movie, and which is coming from Krishna. Right? The humor also is coming because everything comes from Krishna. Right? So I am observing, I am seeing that humor which is coming from Krishna, but actually not what Charlie Chaplin is doing. So that's why the great acharyas or the pure devotees, they look everything in the form of Krishna, right? Not like the material people. So that's what this shloka explains very clearly. Let's go into the next one.
Hari bol, Hari bol.
Hare Krishna. Yes, somebody wants to read this?
Prabhuji, if nobody is reading, I can read, Prabhuji.
Oh, sure, Mataji, go ahead.
Yeah. Translation in purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, I alone existed with my specific spiritual potencies. Consciousness was then unmanifested, just as one's consciousness is unmanifested during the time of sleep. Purport. The word aham indicates a person. As explained in the Vedas, nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. The Lord is a supreme eternal among innumerable eternals and the supreme living being among the innumerable living beings. The Lord is a person who also has impersonal features. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagwan. Consideration of the Paramatma and impersonal Brahman arose after the creation. Before the creation, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead existed. As firmly declared in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, the Lord can be understood only by Bhakti Yoga. The ultimate cause, the supreme cause of creation, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can be understood only by Bhakti Yoga. He cannot be understood by speculative philosophical research or by meditation, since all such processes came into existence after the material creation. The impersonal and localized conceptions of the Supreme Lord are more or less materially contaminated. The real spiritual process, therefore, is Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord says, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Only by devotion service can I be understood. Before the creation, the Lord existed as a person, as indicated here by the word Aham. When Prajapati Daksha saw him as a person who was beautifully dressed and ornamented, he actually experienced the meaning of this word Aham through devotion service. Each person is eternal because the Lord says that he existed as a person before the creation, Agre, and will also exist after the annihilation. The Lord is a person eternally. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore quotes these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9.13 to 14. न चान्तर्न बहिर्यस्य न पूर्वं नापि चापरं पूर्वापरं बहिश्चान्तर् जगतो यो जगच्चया तम्मत्वात्मजम् अव्यक्तं मर्त्यलिङ्गम् अधोक्षजं गोपिकोलुखले धाम्ना babandha prakritam yatha. The personality of Godhead appeared in Vrindavan as the son of Mother Yashoda, who bound the Lord with rope, just as an ordinary mother binds a material child. There are actually no divisions of external and internal for the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satchidananda Vigraha. But when he appears in his own form, the unintelligent think him an ordinary person. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashritam. Although he comes in his own body, which never changes, Mudas, the unintelligent, think that the impersonal Brahman has assumed a material body to come in the form of a person. Ordinary living beings assume material bodies, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Consciousness, it is stated herein that Samgyana Matram, the original consciousness, Krishna consciousness, was unmanifested before the creation, although the consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of everything. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 2.12, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Thus the Lord's person is the absolute truth in the past, present, and future. In this regard, Madhvacharya quotes two verses from Matsya Purana. Nanavarno haristveko bahusisha bhujorupat आसीलये तद् अन्यत्तु सूक्ष्मरूपं श्रियं विना असुप्त इव च मीलिताक्षो भवद्धरी अन्यत्रानादराद् विष्णौ श्रीश्चलीनेव कथ्यते सूक्ष्मत्वेन हरौ स्थानाल् लीनमन्यद् अपीष्यते. After the annihilation of everything, the Supreme Lord, because of his Satchitananda Vigraha, remains in his original form. But since the other living entities have material bodies, the matter merges into matter, and the subtle form of the spirit soul remains within the body of the Lord. The Lord does not sleep, but the ordinary living entities remain asleep until the next creation. An unintelligent person thinks that the opulence of the Supreme Lord is non-existent after the annihilation, but that is not a fact. The opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as it is in the spiritual world. Only in the material world is everything dissolved. Brahma Leena, merging into the Supreme Brahman, is not actual Leena or annihilation, for the subtle form remaining in the Brahman effulgence will return to the material world after the material creation and again assume a material form. This is described as Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate. When the material body is annihilated, the spirit soul remains in a subtle form, which later assumes another material body. This is true for the conditioned souls, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains eternally in his original consciousness and spiritual body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So Prabhupada is trying to explain us from this shloka that, Supreme Lord is not temporary. He is eternal and permanent. Right? Like a lot of atheists and Mayavadis claim that, he does not have any form and, it's temporary, not permanent, but it's not true. Right? So, Supreme Lord in a lot of occasions, he gives a lot of references as well in Bhagavad Gita that, he's always, he's permanent. Right? A lot of places. I mean, he says, if I'm not wrong, in 10th chapter, Krishna says, Yo mamajam manadim cha vetti loka maheshwaram asamuddahasa marteshu sarva pape pramuchati. right? One who understands that I am Ajam Anadhim. I don't have no end and no beginning. Such people or such person is, all his sins are washed off, right? So a lot of things, he talks about his dham that, which is eternal, right? And Brahma Samhita also gives us an understanding that, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adhyam Purana Purusham Na Vayavvanam Cha. That means he's always young, he's never old, he's, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim. There's no beginning for him, right? So that's what, Supreme Lord is, he's always eternal, and just because the cosmic manifestation is dissolved, he will not. Right? If he is also dissolved, then who is creating? Right? In 10th chapter, Krishna explains that, because of his will, this entire cosmic manifestation is recreated again and again. Right? Prakrutim swam avastabhya visarjami punaha punaha. It is created again and again due to his will. So if God's consciousness is also dissolved, then who's creating these things? It's all trash. What, some kind of atheists and Mayavadis, they argue. He's very clearly saying, Visarjami punaha punaha bhuta gramam imam krishnam avasam prakrutir vasa. Very clearly saying, because of my will, all this cosmic manifestation is being created again and again. So if not him, then who will do it? Yeah. 48. Yeah, somebody wants to read this? Okay, let me read this. I am the reservoir of ultimate unlimited potency, and therefore I am known as unlimited or all-pervading. From my material energy, the cosmic manifestation appeared within me. And in this universe, manifestation appeared. The chief being Lord Brahma, who is your source and is not born of a material mother. So Krishna, Lord Vishnu is explaining about the cosmic manifestation, how it is created. Let's see, purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is a description of the history of the universal creation. Right? The first cause is the Lord himself, the Supreme Person. From him, Brahma is created, and Brahma takes charge of affairs of the universe. The universal affairs of the material creation depend upon the material energy of the Supreme Lord of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore the cause of material creation. The entire cosmic manifestation describes here in Guna Vigraha, the form of the Lord's qualities. From the cosmic universal form, the first creation is Lord Brahma, who is the cause of all living entities. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya describes the unlimited attributes of the Lord. The Lord has innumerable potencies, all of which are unlimited. Therefore, the Lord himself and all his qualities, forms, pastimes, and paraphernalia are also unlimited. Because Lord Vishnu has unlimited attributes, he is known as Ananta. Right? So, this is a description of how the universe is created. So, Lord Vishnu is explaining that, that he is the cause of creating the universe. And the first chief being is Brahma. Right? And he says he is also source of Daksha's birth. And Brahma is not born of any material mother. He is created directly he is born of the Supreme Lord directly. Let's go next. Yeah, somebody want to read this?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandat Pranam.
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji Dandat Pranam. Please read.
Yeah. Translation and purport Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. When the chief lord of the universe, Lord Brahma, Swayambhu, having been inspired by my energy, was attempting to create, he thought himself incapable. Therefore, I gave him advice, and in accordance with my instructions, he underwent extremely difficult austerities. Because of these austerities, the great Lord Brahma was able to create 9 personalities, including you, to help him in the functions of creation. Purport. Nothing is possible without tapasya. Lord Brahma, however, was empowered to create this entire universe because of his austerities. The more we engage in austerities, the more we become powerful by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, Rishabhadeva advised his sons, Tapadivyam Putrakayena Sattvam Sudyayat. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine portion of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified. As per Bhagavad Gita, 5.1. In our material existence, we are impure, and therefore we can't do anything wonderful. But if we purify our existence by tapasya, we can do wonderful things by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, tapasya is very important, as stressed in this verse.
Hare Krishna. Now we understand the reason why, our Siksha Guru, Lilananda Prabhuji, and other Shinera Vaishnavas puts us through a lot of austerity and a lot of services. This is the reason, Prabhuji and Mataji. Even the great personality, the chief living entity, Brahma, could not perform anything without austerity. And after performing a lot of austerity, tapasya, he was able to create. Right? So what are we in front of him? Therefore, that's the reason, Prabhupada says, and as we just discussed some time back, Krishna consciousness movement is a very practical process for us. It's not something hypothetical. If you do that, it can be like this. No. Right? That's the reason we go through whatever we go through in our spiritual journey is all based on scriptures. And why one should go through the austerity is very, very clearly explained here. Right? Hare Krishna. 51. Anyone want to read this?
Me?
Yes.
Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Can I read from?
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Translation. Translation audible.
Yes, only translation, no purport to this.
Oh, my dear son, Daksha, Prajapati Panchajana has a daughter named Ashikni, whom I offer to you so that you may accept her as your wife.
Yes. So apart from Daksha Prajapati, there is other Prajapati whose name is Panchajana. So Supreme Lord said, I am offering her to you, right? Where you can accept her as your wife. And then, because Supreme Lord understands the desire of Daksha Prajapati that he want to produce more and more children, and for the only reason to liberate them, not for any material satisfaction or material enjoyment. That Lord has understood his desire. Therefore, he says, I am offering you Asikni, accept as your wife, and then we'll see what happens next. Yes. Can anyone read?
If nobody is reading, I can read, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Anybody?
I'll read, Prabhuji.
Yes, please, Mother.
Translation. Now unite in sexual life as man and woman, and in this way, by sexual intercourse, you will be able to beget hundreds of children in the womb of this girl to increase the population. Should I read the purport also,
Yes,
Prabhuji?
yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7.11, Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kama smriti. I am six, that is not contrary to religious principles. Sexual intercourse ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is dharma, a religious principle, but it is not intended for sense enjoyment. Indulgence in sense enjoyment through sexual intercourse is not allowed by the Vedic principles. One may follow the natural tendency for sex life only to beget children. Therefore, the Lord told Daksha in this verse, this girl is offered to you only for sex life to beget children, not for any other purpose. She is very fertile and therefore you will be able to have as many children as you can beget. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura remarks in this connection that Daksha was given the facility for unlimited sexual intercourse. In the Daksha's previous life, he was only known as Daksha, but in the course of performing sacrifices, he offended Lord Shiva, and thus his head was replaced with that of a goat. Then Daksha gave up his life because of his degraded condition, but because he maintained the same unlimited sexual desires, he underwent austerities by which he satisfied the Supreme Lord, who then gave him unlimited potency for sexual intercourse. It should be noted that although such a facility for sexual intercourse is achieved by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this facility is not offered to advanced devotees who are free from material desires. In this connection, It may be noted that if the American boys and girls engaged in Krishna consciousness movement want to advance in Krishna consciousness to achieve the supreme benefit of loving service to the Lord, they should refrain from indulging in this facility for sex life. Therefore, we advise that one should at least refrain from illicit sex. Even if there are opportunities for sex life, one should voluntarily accept the limitations of having sex only for progeny, not for any other purposes. Kartama Muni was also given the facility for sex life, but he had only a slight desire of it. Therefore, after begetting children in the womb of Devahuti, Kartama Muni became completely renounced. The purport is that if one wants to return home back to Godhead, one should voluntarily refrain from sex life. Sex should be accepted only as much as needed, not unlimitedly. One should not think that Daksha received the favor of the Lord by receiving the facilities of unlimited sex. Later verses will reveal that Daksha again committed an offense, this time at the lotus feet of Narada. Therefore, although sex life is the topmost enjoyment in the material world, and although one may have an opportunity for sexual enjoyment by the grace of God, this entails a risk of committing offenses. Daksha was open to such offenses, and therefore, strictly speaking, he was not actually favored by the Supreme Lord. One should not seek the favor of the Lord for unlimited potency in sexual life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, Prabhuji and Mataji, when I was preparing for this class, I understood, or I was thinking, how important a purport is, because there is a high possibility that a very new coming devotee or upcoming devotee or somebody who does not have any spiritual knowledge reads this translation, right? So there is a high possibility that they might look at it in a different way, a completely material way. So that's the reason it is always said that we need to have the right knowledge from the senior devotees or great acharyas. So how beautifully Prabhupada explained that that the desire of Daksha is different, that it is not a material sexual desire, and the boon which is given by Supreme Lord is also different. It's a different reason, and that's the reason he clearly said, accept her as your wife, right? Don't accept, don't not in a different way, right? So it is dharma. Do it as per dharma, whatever it is. Even if you want to produce more children for the benefit of liberating them, do it as per dharma. And as 7.11 Prabhupada quoted here, dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshapa, right? I am that sex which is not in contrary to the religious principles, right? So whatever is within the religious principles, it is accepted, right? Hare Krishna. (53) Anyone want to read?
Hare Krishna. Shall I read? Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Hello?
Yes, Mataji. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yeah. After you give birth to many hundreds and thousands of children, they will also be captivated by my illusionary energy and will engage like you in sexual intercourse. But because of my mercy to you and them, they will also be able to give me presentations in devotion.
Haribol. Look at how Supreme Lord is merciful. Right? Somebody is in a constant devotion to him, right? He will take care. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupashate. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshema vahami aham. 8th chapter, Krishna says. Right? I will take care of you. Don't worry. Right? Whoever is in continuous devotion towards him, right? Without any interruption. Ahaitvuki apratihata. So he's confirming that the well-being is his responsibility. Right? So that's what he's saying here. Through my mercy, right, they will be able to be under my representation in devotion. Right? So last shloka, I will read this. So finally, Sukdev Goswami continued saying, after the creator of entire universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, had spoken in this way in the presence of Prajapati Daksha, he immediately disappeared as if he were an object experienced in a dream. So it's like, just like when we sleep in the dream, something comes like a light and then just goes off. So after telling all these things to Prajapati and offering him a wife to get married and then begot children. So he immediately disappeared just like in a fraction of a second. Right? So this ends this chapter 4 of the canto. Right? We are done with this session, Prabhuji and Mataji's. It's a pretty straightforward chapter, and it goes like a nice story with a little bit of philosophy. So I think we are done. Any questions? So we can open up and we can take some questions, discuss. No questions? That means you did not understand anything what we discussed. I was not able to be it clear. Hare Krishna.
Here, Prabhuji, the parents who are leaving their children in hostel may ask the management to put to give prasada, so that many people will have prasada and change in future to the spiritual life.
Yes, of course, Prabhuji. I think a lot of devotees these days, they are opening up institutions.
Yeah. They must discuss with the management if it is possible to give prasada and mix it for all children, so that with prasad also there are many benefits will happen for the children.
Hopefully,
Other children also will be coming to spiritual consciousness.
Hopefully, let's play to Lord Krishna that your desire will be fulfilled. So everybody should have access to Krishna Prasad. There is no doubt.
Yeah.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you. So if there are no questions, any feedback, any reflections, Mataji's and Prabhuji's, we can call it off.
Thank you for the class, Prabhuji, and the explanations.
Hare Krishna.
So much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. I think the relevance and the connection to different slokas from Bhagavad Gita and even Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, so that was good. So thank you.
Thank you, Sunil Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam to all of you. Thanks for taking time to attend this session and bearing me for last 1.5 hours or so. I'm sorry if I have spoken anything wrong. Please forgive me. Vanchakalpatarupyasya kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Antakoti Vaishnava Vrunda ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande Hari. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you all.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.